to button teaching, modeling first words, and target training. This is interactive, obviously, as we are already going through here. So feel free to ask questions throughout in the chat. And if I don't address it right away, know that I'm probably going to just be talking about it when we are getting to the key that is most relevant when it comes to button teaching here. Then I will share additional resources and we'll have time for Q&A after if there's any lingering questions as well, or if it's easier to talk through a question that you have as opposed to typing, we'll have time at the end too. Right. And Phyllis, welcome to you, and Thomas, Margaret, 2.5-year-old poodle mix, no progress yet. All good. Let me know how long you've been at it out of curiosity. And there's no right or wrong answers with any of this. And we're going to be discussing general best practices, but that doesn't mean that they're the only practices. You know your learner and your household best. So if at any point I say something and you're like, I don't think that's going to work for us, that's okay. Let us know and we'll figure out what will work instead. And again, that's why today is just the beginning of your button teaching journey. We're happy to assist going forward, if you'll have us. Aubrey, welcome to you. And Alfie, 2-year-old Cavapoo, very enthusiastic about his buttons, tendency to repeatedly press a button when he doesn't get what he wants. I understand. I don't know if you've heard the repetition behind me here. My border collie especially likes to repeat herself for emphasis. In your case, I'm going to generally suggest, and we'll get more specific in a bit, but I'm going to generally suggest that it might be time to add more buttons. Sometimes that much repetition, or once they're independently pressing and suddenly they start pressing a button and they don't want what the outcome of the button actually is, or they get your attention and then lead you somewhere else after pressing. Sometimes our tendency is to be like, well, I guess they don't understand it, or they're only using it for attention. But instead, think about it as behavior is communication. They're telling you, hey, I want to get your attention. So it might be worth adding an attention or connection seeking button. Mom was button number 4 for, Miss Katie, because she would, which I guess, I don't know where she went, but she would press the eat button repeatedly just to get my attention. So think about maybe some ways to put an attention button on the board, and also think about what they might also be wanting to talk about, or if they're leading you elsewhere, consider adding a button for that. At first it can seem like they don't get it, but in fact, they're getting it so well that they're ready for more. They're hungry for more words, as Christina Hunger would say. Jordan, welcome to you from Sweden, and Ace, 3-year-old mixed breed cat, just got the buttons. Awesome, good to know. And Chris, welcome to you, 2 dogs and 3 cats, focusing on the dogs and probably just one of the cats for teaching. That sounds like a good plan. Though don't be surprised if everybody wants to participate, or the cat that takes to the buttons might be a different one than you expect. And they can absolutely all learn from each other as well. Social learning is a thing, and you can always build out the board at the speed of your fastest learner and have a duplicate board, or one that's just tailored to niche interests depending on the species, as opposed to one giant board, depending on what's going to work out best for your household. If you've got any resource guarding going on, and I know I said we'd talk about this later, but since I'm on this tangent right now, I love for multi-species, multi-learner households, if you are doing one large shared board, like how we have, small islands, but it's still technically one big board, I've got duplicates of the most valuable buttons. So the mom button, there's multiple. The food buttons, multiple. These sorts of things. Yeah, you hear sound. I know. That was a loud sound. That was machine sound. Thank you guys. Wow. And so apologies for the barking. I would have warned had I known that was going to happen. Hopefully headphones weren't too loud there, or mine filtered out some of the barking. But again, behavior is an opportunity for connection and for teaching. Behavior is information. Adora, my border collie, is very concerned about sounds. She was alerting very concerned to a sound. So I can narrate, Adora concerned, hear loud sound. Yes. Me acknowledging that I heard the sound too, that she is safe. Yes, I know. You're still concerned, huh? You are safe now. Yeah, sound all done. Sound all done. And so talking to them all throughout, narrating, and just because I'm in front of you guys, I'm not pressing the buttons, but we do have a hear button, sound, machine, truck, all things that she likes to talk about and that can help her work through her anxiety. Okay. Yeah, so before the interruption, duplicates of the valuable buttons can be really advantageous if you have resource garters. And I love that you guys are adding photos in the chat too. So fun. Oh, good. And Chris, I'm glad to hear that you already use bells. That does translate really well to the buttons overall. And I just encourage, again, people to leave potty bells, any kind of communication form like that in place. You can always just have a duplicate on the board, just like you can have duplicate buttons. Yeah, more ways of communicating is not a bad thing. Avani, welcome to you from India and your two-year-old cats, Olive and Nazar. Always trying to talk to mama, love it. They started kitten, we're starting play as our first button, just modeling for now. Play is a fantastic starter button. We'll talk about, it might be worth adding some additional ones, starting with 2 or 3. We'll get into more detail with that in a bit. Daniel, welcome to you and your golden doodle brownie. Knows how to ring a bell. Awesome. So again, that'll translate well. Still prefers the bell, no worries. So we'll all right. Let's talk a little bit about how can I transition him over to using the button. I want to talk about board layout a little bit because this gets into where do I put the buttons to start off? And apologies again if anybody's just joining and I'm blurry. It's just my rural internet. While it might be really easy for us to press the button on our way outside, for example, or to ring a bell on our way outside when it's at the back door, or press the play button while it's with the toy bin, press the food button while it's in the kitchen, it can be really easy for modeling. That's tough, though, for them combining buttons eventually. And also, when they've already been using the bell successfully, why would they want to switch to a button, right? So leave that bell in its place, and I would put the button on a centralized soundboard that's easy for you to get to model, to push, easy for your learner to get to. And a lot of our learners like to make eye contact with us. They like to watch us while they're pressing, especially early on, until they have more independence and more confidence around pressing the buttons. So thinking about a central location or even bringing your entire soundboard, especially if it's a small one to start off, we recommend typically, 3 buttons, 2 or 3 hex tiles to start off. So especially while it's small, just bring it with you until you know where you want it to live full time. Because then once you get to something like a more button that Ash just pressed because they want more cookies, they're like, hey, you fed us for being quiet. Can we have some more? Yes, go find it. So when it comes to something like a more button, that can go with the outside button. That can go with toys, with eat, with all of these different things. So having it already centrally located and having it so that they don't think that there needs to be a physical representation of the button nearby, that can help them once you get to the abstract concepts and all too. Romy, you've got a great question about abstract concepts. We'll dive into that. I've got a slide all about it. Don't worry. Elsie, welcome to you and your Shikoku. Waiting on your buttons to arrive. No worries, Phyllis. Lots of folks are waiting. All good. Oh, good. Oh, Brownie's so cute. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and Joanne asks, when first starting, do you limit time using the buttons to like a training session or leave them out all the time? If you don't have a learner who's trying to destroy the soundboard and the buttons, like trying to chew them up all the time, carry them off, I do try to leave them out. Um, and that's also why we want to try to have buttons down that are easy to say yes to so that you can say yes and you're not just the buttons all the time. We'll talk about modeling more specifically with that. That's a really great question. Yeah, so try to leave them out all the time unless they're destroying. And if you see that you have learners that are trying to chew at the buttons a lot, again, behavior is information. It might be worth adding a chew button as an early starter button for them because they clearly are telling you that's something they want to do. And then you can redirect them to an appropriate outlet like a yak cheese chew, bully stick, antler, something like that. All right. And there's Bernie, my one-eyed boy. There's Jasper. She's unfortunately since passed, but she was kind of my starter cat with the buttons and the inspiration for bringing home the two visually impaired kittens who are now 1 year old and using the buttons. So a little bit more about us as a company. And if anybody hasn't had a chance to introduce themselves, feel free to do so in the chat. I'll see it when it comes through. While Alexander Rossi and Christina Hunger were using buttons previously with their learners, FluentPet is the original button teaching system. So what does that mean? So we were designed specifically for use for animals, and our mission is to figure out how to teach dogs, cats, and the other animals we share this planet with how to talk or an approximation of it. And we believe that pulling this off will take a village, a community that can develop and share button teaching tips and tricks and work together to discover the most successful button teaching approaches. So that's where you all come in. Our success in this mission entirely depends on your success with your learners. And the more of us who are able to progress, the faster we can figure out just how far all this can go. And in case any of you are wondering how far this can go, we really hope that this helps paint a picture of what's possible, and you'll probably recognize Alexis and Bunny.
The foundation for getting started with buttons is just a desire to connect. I can't remember the exact order, but I think she asked stranger mad, and I was like, what does that mean? And then ouch paw. And then she came over to me and she put her left paw in my hand, and I was like, okay. And I looked between her toes and she had a foxtail stuck between her toes.
This was the stranger in her paw. She's got a mat between her toes.
And it's not just Bunny who can do these amazing things. I mentioned my blind cat, Jasper. She was able to request medication multiple times after having an eye procedure with eyes and help. And it's not just medical related. There's lots of fun examples too. One of my favorite early ones was with Scout, a Catahoula mix who would repeatedly combine water and bone. It took us a little while to figure out what she wanted, but it was ice cubes. And so she got an ice cube button and was able to advocate for herself in that way. So it really is amazing how creative they can be, even with a limited vocabulary. All right, so how do we begin? For those of you who are just starting off, your first step is going to be modeling. So talk to your learners all the time. You can do this verbally before you have your buttons set up. Anybody who's still waiting on shipping or hasn't set them up yet, you've probably been talking to them a lot anyway. That's a fantastic first step. Keep talking to them. Try to keep track of the language that you're using and be as consistent as possible. And if you've got multiple humans in your household, try to pick what everybody is using already to keep it consistent. For those of you who are multilingual, speak multiple languages, sounds like there's quite a few of you, that's fantastic. You've got the advantage of avoiding homonyms. You can pick things that sound more distinct, and you can always change up how you narrate in order to make it more distinct. I know I've even done that with English, my really only language, aside from animal body language. I re-recorded our help button to be more dramatic so that I could hear it better and I narrate help a little bit more dramatically. Before it was just help, but now it's like help and it gets my attention much faster. And so you can get creative with things like that. I had my best friend record the friend button so that it has a bit of a distinct sound as well that way. So you can get creative with picking and choosing, but be as consistent as possible too. And since modeling is how we teach our learners what these concepts mean, early on, we want to pick buttons for which it's easy to say yes to the press. We want to set ourselves up for success and capture their excitement and enthusiasm around the board and teach them this is an amazing tool that they now have available to them. Because if they are pressing it and we're having to tell them no, or we're ignoring them because we're on a work call or something like that, that can be really frustrating and might take them longer to see the value in it because they're like, well, why? You're not paying attention. So try to pick things that you can say yes to. And once you're ready to put the buttons down, there's 3 simple steps. First, press the button, something that you can immediately follow through on. And the more frequently you can press it, the better. If you can model 10 to 15 times throughout the day, awesome. You're laying a super strong foundational understanding of button equals this outcome each and every time. And then step 2 is follow through. Show them the meaning of the word by making it happen and by saying yes to it. And then step 3 is repeat. Go back to step 1, repeat, repeat, repeat. It's a lot of repetition, especially early on while we're helping them understand that buttons have a consistent outcome each and every time. So what does this look like in practice? I have a video for you with Kelly and her learner Delmer. This is the first 24 hours that they had buttons down in their household, so you'll see just how much repetition they're doing.
Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Pets. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Pets. Puzzle. Puzzle.
Yes. Puzzle.
Beautiful accidental press.
Puzzle. Puzzle. Outside. 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 Puzzle. Outside. Puzzle. Outside. Outside. Outside.
So again, it's a lot of repetition, especially early on. We want them to understand that consistency and to realize that these are good things and that they can make these things happen too. And I have a note at the bottom that says basically that the speed at which they pick up buttons has no bearing on their long-term success. So for those of you who have already been modeling, it doesn't mean that you're doing anything wrong. It doesn't mean that your learner is less intelligent or that they're uninterested in buttons. Some of our most successful learners to this day took weeks to months before pressing. Some of them you might know, like Milo, the Aussie Doodle, Cash the Golden, Elsie, the Calico Cat. They all have probably close to 100 buttons, if not more, on their boards now. And it took them a while to be interested. And in Milo's case, it was switching to a jug button so that a specific plastic toy would come out to play with. Once he had a button to ask for something that was very tough to ask for just via body language and easily repeatable throughout the day and motivating to Milo, he was like, okay, I think I want to use these buttons now. So keep at it, and we can always tweak buttons if you have something down already and you don't think it's working. We'll talk about choosing or re-choosing first buttons in a couple slides. First, there's another way to model. Maybe you're not home throughout the day. Maybe modeling all throughout the time that you are home is just not feasible. You just don't have the energy, whatever reason, time. That's okay. You can work on this in as little as 30 seconds a day with rapid modeling or rapid pairing. So food is a great way to build value for the buttons and to get them wanting more. So this is where I do like to leave the buttons down all the time, and then I'll do some targeted, if it's safe to do so, and then I'll do some targeted training sessions with either target training specifically or some rapid modeling. So here's Kelly with a different learner, Nushka, and a snack button. Snack is a great general food concept, so it can be used in between meals, and they're not expecting a full meal each time. Kelly's using a single kibble, and notice she's pressing the button with the piece of food to really drive home that this is equaling the food. And yeah, so we want to press the buttons first. We don't want to actually expect the animal to ever press a button. Like to this day, I never expect a button to press. Even my border collie, who's 4.5 years into using them, she always has the opportunity to connect. And I might prompt her, I might ask her for something or to clarify, but she is always more than welcome to answer me with body language or not answer me or with a vocalization. yeah, so we should press the buttons first. And I have, I don't think I've ever prompted my cats to press. I've worked on like target training. I've done rapid modeling like this. But it's all them telling me what they want when they want it. And I get dozens, if not hundreds of presses a day from my crew. So I think in some ways, the more expectation and the more pressure and prompting we put on them, the more resistance there is, because they're like, well, why do I have to do it this way? Or I think about it as similar to being told in elementary school, like, or raising my hand and being like, can I be excused? You know, I really had to go to the bathroom. And the teacher is, I'm like getting up, you know, like, please, can I be excused? And the teacher is like, you mean, may you be excused? And I had clearly communicated a need in that moment. It was very urgent. And I'm being taught grammar in that moment. That's not the time, right? So if our learners are engaging with us, whether it's vocally, whether it's throwing a toy at our feet, pawing at us, pawing at the door, we're at least still always acknowledging that. And this isn't just directed at you, Indio, to be clear. This is just to everybody. This is my general spiel and soapbox about the buttons. For me, what I've found and what I've observed in a lot of other households too is the less expectation we put around the buttons and the more we see it as an opportunity to connect in a specific way, the better. What is it, Adora? What? Hi. You want pets? A good opportunity. She came up to me and was whining. What she actually wants is outside. But I offered her some pets. If she had come up to me and, you know, nuzzled me a little bit, I would go ahead and pet. I would never expect her to press the pets button first. I might press pets and then go ahead and pet her, but I'm verbally narrating. That way, when I'm away from the board or we're traveling away from the board, they still have plenty of ways that they're comfortable communicating and connecting too. Yeah, and I apologize that I didn't specify before, but absolutely, yep, we're pressing the buttons, and then the learners have the opportunity to if they want. And again, the speed at which they get to the point of independent pressing, it's going to depend on the learner. Even litter mates pick it up at different rates, and it has no bearing on their long-term success or how successful you are as an instructor. It's really just how motivated are they to press? How curious are they about something new? And we can speed this up with choosing first buttons and words that are motivating and meaningful to our individual learner or learners, easy and convenient for us to model immediately and follow through with and say yes to, and concrete or actionable. Because the soundboard itself is an abstract tool that they're learning how to use, if we start with abstract concepts, that can slow them down. So the more demonstrable, the more actionable that the buttons are, the better for them picking it up. And we do want to start with 2 or 3 buttons, more than one, to help them understand that different buttons mean different things. So if you've got 3, I would just go ahead and start with the 3, unless you know that your learner is, you know, easily frustrated or overwhelmed. But then you can kind of show them, again, that different buttons have different outcomes, mean different things. And it's up to you if you start more general or more specific. You can start with a general play. That's how I started with my kittens. I began with eat, pets, and play. But you can also do a specific toy for Adora. Ball is life. So we started with ball really early on instead for her. And then we have a general play. She understands a general play. My one cat, my one-eyed guy, Bernie, he is getting into specific actions and activities. So we're getting into specific toys now with him. And I began with the general eat, but as you heard from Katie at the beginning, we've gotten into specifics, going so far as kibble, wet food, even pumpkin, because she loves that as a meal topper and it helps her stomach. I never knew cats loved pumpkin so much until she came home at like to the point where she literally loves using her pumpkin button and will request it on probably 2 of her 5 or 6 meals a day on average. I know, your dog sound. Wow. Loud dog sound. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Sorry, y'all. Yeah, and so again, I like the general eat, but you could do snack, you could do a general food. I try to caution people against only mealtime buttons because you're only able to model them a couple of times a day or a few more times if you have a cat who likes small meals, which is a lot of them. So think about what you can model frequently. With snack or with eat, I can even break a kibble in half and be telling them yes and get that much repetition in. And once they realize that you're going to say yes to it and you're going to say yes to it repeatedly, it loses a little bit of its value. So if you're worried that they're just going to spend all their time spamming a food button, notice my guys have been hanging out and there hasn't been any of that. Adora's been debating spamming the outside button because she really wants to go outside and go for a creek walk right now. But she hasn't been pressing the food buttons. So even if you are worried that they're over the top excited about food, that can be a great motivator for teaching them. Or maybe it comes out just for a training session and lives, on top of the fridge the rest of the time. Whatever you need to do to feel comfortable with it. The only times I don't advise starting with a food button is if you have intense resource garters in your home that it's not manageable. It's at least manageable for my crew, so we were still able to use it. Or if they're already on a diet. That can be really frustrating if you're having to tell them no, or all done, or later all the time. So only if you can easily say yes to food. And think about, you can always hold back some of their kibble for the day, and give that to them all throughout for the eat button, whichever. Does that help? I hope, for thinking about food buttons. Let me know if there's any specific questions that you guys have. And Eloise, welcome back. I'm so sorry that you had sound trouble. I do want to address your question about, do I recommend a bell prior to using the button? So just to clarify, anybody who already has a bell, fantastic. Leave that in place, just because that falls into the opportunity to connect, because they're already communicating with us in such a great way. And they're already practicing the precision of a press. They're getting their dexterity down with those bells, or nosing it, whichever way they press the bells. So it's great practice, but it's not mandatory. And as you heard from one of the, I'm blanking on who mentioned it, but their learners only wanting to use the bells so far. That's normal. That's what they're used to. So it can slightly, take an extra step to get them to transition to the buttons. But overall, they understand the concept of, hey, this tool can get me what I want. This tool can communicate something else. To where then when the buttons say exactly what it is, and especially if it sounds like how you're already narrating, they're like, oh, wow, okay. It can connect the dots a lot faster for them. Hopefully that helps with thinking about it. Yeah, and are there any anxieties about a food button? I usually get a lot of questions about that. I know the literature that came with our buttons initially, and even some of the more recent kits still say, try to avoid starting with food. We've redacted all of that. The researchers are all on board with food buttons now, as far as I know. What we found is that just not giving them a food button doesn't stop them from wanting to communicate about food. And it's so motivating. Why not give them an acceptable outlet for it? And again, it tends to diminish in value once they realize you're going to say yes all the time. Otherwise, I'd have learners pressing nonstop, right? Oh, Avani, great question. I use some cutesy names for things instead of actual words. For example, I have a feeding song called Yummy Time. I sing to my learners all the time as well. And I really wish that we had more research around, does it translate the same? Or maybe because of the rhythm and the pattern, maybe in some ways it gets them to pay attention more. Who knows? So anyway, side note, I love that. But how do I deal with buttons for concepts like this where I've used not actual words? You could absolutely have a button called Yummy Time if you want. Totally up to you. You could translate that to, Yummy Time, eat now, or something like that. Start to add an additional clarification if you wanted to have that clarification be the button. But there's no harm at all in Yummy Time being your actual button. I did actually initially start Jasper, my blind cat, with hungry as her early button, because I would ask her all the time, are you hungry? That was our usual conversational way of speaking. And then I realized once I added a want button, want hungry just didn't quite have the right ring to it. And we got specific with wet food and kibble and things like that as well. And so eat wound up being a better phrase for us. And so I just re-recorded the button, but it started with hungry, what she was comfortable with. She transitioned to the different recording, no problem, because I left it in the same place. And I used kind of a Kitty Braille texture system to help her differentiate buttons. So that all stayed the same. So you can make board adjustments as well. So maybe start it with yummy time if it's difficult for you to put into other sentences and with other concepts. Maybe work on changing, adjusting it, but yeah, stick with what you're used to there. And Aubrey said I had to pair my food button with an all done button, and that is pretty typical. Absolutely. So let's talk about abstract concepts, because I see another great abstract concept question. Nadine, you are correct. That is an abstract concept, but definitely something we want to cover. So in summation, for the picking first buttons and hex styles and layouts, all that, just dive in. You can always make adjustments. You can always re-record. You can always change the layout. We don't want to do too much too fast, too soon and overwhelm them, but just get 3 buttons, get maybe 3 hex styles, 2 or 3. Even my tiny kittens, I didn't like to have more than 2 buttons per hex tile just so that they're not overwhelmed. And just go with it. Again, you can carry your whole board with you until you know where you want it to live. Yeah, just dive in. You can always make adjustments. Don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. And then once they're independently pressing, you're ready to start teaching some abstract concepts. So I want to emphasize first that, especially like what Aubrey experienced needing to pair the food button with all done, the more yes or more buttons that are easy to say yes to that you can put on the board, the better. That way we're reducing frustration. We're following through, we're not accidentally demotivating them. So think about things like puzzle that take them longer to work through so that you can be saying yes, maybe to a food press, but you're not saying yes constantly. You can multitask, you can be doing other things. So again, think about setting yourselves up for success with easy to say yes to things. And then you are probably ready to start teaching abstract pairs once you have those independent presses. And especially if you're getting more presses than you can say yes to, something like more and all done, yes and no, now and later can all be really helpful concepts. And I like to pick one pair to start off with and pay attention to how you're talking to them, how you're narrating, how you're modeling verbally. And that can give you a hint as to which one of these pairs is the right one to start off with for your crew. So why pairs? Because abstract concepts are less actionable and more confusing, therefore, on average, the more we can model them in contrast or in opposition to each other, the better. Hence, more and all done together, yes and no together, now and later together as well. Even household member names you can be introducing together to model in contrast, in opposition to one another. Yes, more eat now. We're taking action with the more, with the yes, with the now. We're adding food. Yes, more outside now. We can go outside with those, right? In contrast, no, outside all done. We'll go later. And then nothing happens. That's a lot more confusing, right? There's not anything actionable there. One exception that I found with the all done button, you can sometimes, if you have hand signals, have taught them anything like that, you could do, all done in that way. Anytime I notice my cat's covering their food to tell me that they're done eating, I can narrate all done. So that's a little bit more actionable. But overall, right, we'll do it later. Nothing happens. That's really confusing. So we can be modeling now in contrast to later. Other abstract concepts include emotions. So think about modeling a positive emotion button like happy in contrast with mad or sad or frustrated. You all heard me work on safe and concerned earlier. I narrated those for Adora when she was concerned about the machine sound that she heard outside. And I say all of these things and her head is tilting beside me because this is all button speak. These are all the concepts and the words that we've worked on specifically as I'm conveying them to you all. Um, we can think about time like today versus tomorrow versus yesterday, and then names as well. I love eat as a button because I can narrate it in a lot of ways too. So like mom eat whenever I'm eating, Adora eat when she's eating, Ash eat, Katie eat, Bernie eat. I can be kind of contrasting in that way. And some folks will call that a tea party, which Calvin added the link to helpfully in the chat for us. Thank you guys. And Aubrey added, I just had the members in my home always greet my dog by pressing their own name button, and he eventually picked up which button referred to which person. But I don't know if that's the right way. Certainly, yeah, you can do that. You can also have them just narrate, and you narrate whatever the other people are doing as well. And if anybody is wondering what to call themselves, if you live with a bunch of other humans who are used to, so your learner is used to hearing you called by your first name, that might be the best choice. If you live with, younger humans that are calling you mom or dad, or you just want to identify as mom to your animals the way I do, great. You can just be talking in third person as well to narrate what it is that you're doing. All right. Let's talk about target training, and then, yes, I'll share where you can find the recordings and continuing education, where you can find resources to study all of this on your own, or if you've got questions in the middle of the night that you want answered, yeah, we'll go through all that. Don't worry. So target training. If you're modeling consistently and you've chosen motivating buttons for your learner, often they'll start to press independently, but not always. Sometimes they need help with target training to connect the dots, build their confidence, their accuracy, and work on that precision if they're going through a growth spurt. We can think of it as developing eye-paw or eye-nose coordination, depending on how they naturally prefer to press. And if we think about them learning how to use the soundboard as similar to us typing on a keyboard, at first you need to look at the keys, go really slowly, press each one. But with time, practice, and patience, you don't need to look at your keys anymore. You can pick up your whole laptop, move it wherever. That's what we're getting to with the soundboard. And that's why we want to model any changes that we make. And we want to make those changes slowly. We don't want to rearrange, right, the entire soundboard or your entire keyboard. That would be overwhelming. But if your numbers aren't at the top and they're at the bottom right of your keypad, that is a more easily adjustable thing, right, to handle for us. Thinking back to the keyboard analogy, I might be too old for some of you guys with the learning how to type analogies, but and yes, Phyllis, to clarify, should you have a button for their name? Not necessarily to start off because it's an abstract concept, but a lot of our learners really like to press a name to get our attention, whether it's our name, like the mom button, in my case, or when I added a Bernie button for Bernie. He loves to press the Bernie button. I so wish that I had added it sooner. Some of the delay was settling on a name for him because we just took a while to settle on one. And as soon as he had one, he loves to press it. He presses it all the time. So they will use it to communicate with each other as well, at least in my house, and we've seen it in other households too. So it can be really fun, but not necessarily, again, a starter button, because especially if it's another animal in the home, Bernie presses the Katie button. How do I make Katie appear? That's pretty challenging. What if she doesn't want to cooperate? So yeah, think about actionable things. Right, and Calvin just added some great links to our target training resources here. So I do want to give you a very quick visual overview. Apologies again if I am blurry. The first one, Alexis and Bunny's target training video. If any of your learners already have a high five, take the button out, put it in the palm of your hand, cue them to give you a high five, and then follow through. In this case, a play button, so I could pick up a toy and engage my learners in that way. If they have a nose touch, same thing. Put it in the palm of your hand, cue them to give you a nose touch, follow through. Same thing, shake or paw. Put it in the palm of your hand, give them a cue, follow through. It can be food, play, pets, whatever is motivating to your learner, just follow through on what the button itself is saying. And it looks different in the palm of your hand as opposed to in the hex tile. So don't be surprised if you need to do a little bit of practice with target training once it's in the hex tile. But a great shortcut to success is just holding on to it and helping them out in that way. Or again, just that rapid modeling. I like to model a ton just to get them interested in the board. Once they're hanging out, napping near the board, that's a really great sign that they see value in the buttons. They want to wake up and get to pressing, get to action there. So once they're watching you every time you get near the board, hanging out near it, that might be time to start doing some target training if they're not showing signs that they already want to press independently. And the next two with Justin Bieber the Cat and Cat School are both great for the weight shift to press. A lot of smaller learners like to tap at things as opposed to, that more specific step up and press. Some cats get around it by the flop with their shoulder like Bernie, but when in doubt, help them out. Rather than letting them flail and get frustrated and tap it and be like, I can't get this to activate. I want to do the thing. Instead of letting them get frustrated and give up, just help them out. When in doubt, help them out. Go over and press the button for them. The button, not their body. Press the button. And if you can time it so that you're pressing while they're trying to nose it or paw it, even better, because then they get that tactile feedback, that tactile stimulation of realizing that this is what makes the sound play and the action happen as a result. But really, it just comes down to a lot of repetition. So you guys, you'll get there if you're not already. All right. So continuing education. Our best resource is going to be community.fluent.pet, where a lot of you all are watching this bootcamp right now. Underneath of the welcome area, we've got start button teaching with step-by-step instructions on how to teach if you are that type of learner. It's all for you. Button teaching FAQs. Again, if you think of a question in the middle of the night, you can always ask it. There are folks who love talking about buttons like myself and can do so all day, every day. But there's a good chance that it's already been partially answered at least. So you can always scroll through the FAQs. Under button bootcamp, this section here, the events tab. This is where you can find upcoming ones. You're always welcome to sign up for another bootcamp. Happy to have you or a family member, household member. You can also switch upcoming to past, and that's where you can find recordings, including today's. Mentorship calls, our next event tab down. The next one is on Monday, surviving the spamming stage, which sounds like a few of you all have already gotten some good use out of your all done buttons. This might be beneficial to you. It's taught by Julie, one of our guides who has had success not only with her cats, but with zoo animals that she's worked with. She works at a teaching zoo. So highly recommend these mentorship calls are all different topics. You can RSVP and then they'll show in your time zone as well. But independent pressing to get to the point where you're not having to be near the board for them to press, picking first words, target training, cats. There should be some added around body language as well that I'll be teaching to help out with reading that and following through, and multi-learner households as well. All right. We also have our resources tab. So our learning center, pod targeting tutorials. Here's a soundboard planning tool in Canva. If you are a planner, feel free to use that to help have an idea of where things are going. Just let your learner be your guide and be ready to change that plan based on their interests. Great resources from Calvin and Jason. They've got a laser option as well that's so great. Pressing based on scent with Phoebe. Yeah, we think that a lot of learners, not just fully blind ones like my cat, but a lot of learners are utilizing scent in some capacity to navigate their board. Really, really fascinating stuff. Discussion, more details and updates there. Chat if you've got updates as well. One last thing I want to show you under discussion, show off your soundboard. There are as many soundboard options as there are households. You can see there's lots of kind of the smaller island groups. Here's a really cool wall mounted or plexiglass mounted, even angled for more ergonomic comfort for the learner. Here's that soundboard planning tool in action. There's lots of kind of this cockpit style, as you can see. There's also island style. This is the style that we utilize in my household. So we've basically got 6 mini boards, and I think that helps my learners navigate a little bit. And then they can also each kind of pick a section and not be competing for the same section. Highlight Sasha's corner board here as well. So remember we mentioned that a lot of our learners like to watch us while pressing. Sasha has a great space-saving design with the board tucked into the corner here, but there's still enough room for the learners to get behind the board and watch her while pressing. So until they're to the point where they don't want to watch, and some always want to watch us while they're pressing, they're looking for our response. They're reading us very, very effectively. So that's where watching how your learner uses the soundboard can help us tailor it to their needs. There's Ducat, a very advanced senior cat with her board. She does have cancer, unfortunately, though, so her board is geared towards comfort. She's got a nice cushy walkway here. The hex tiles keep everything in line. You can see the use of color to help kind of group things more easily. And she's got lots of nap zones, so she can basically wake up, stretch, and press what it is that she wants. We can get creative about all of these things. All right, I've got one more resource to share with you all. So in addition to all of the free options that I just shared, we have the Let's Get Them Pressing course. We are in the middle of the existing course. It's not too late to join. There are a couple spots left, but I'd probably wait until the next one personally. There's live coaching as well as asynchronous materials that I helped contribute the cat portions to anyway. And it's taught by Diane of Neurodog Training and Alexis with Bunny. So much fun. It's like a 96% success rate by the end of the 4-week class for pressers. There's a lot of the great topics that are covered. Just if you want more help than all of, again, the great free options that we have for you. And then if you are looking for more buttons or hex tiles or anything like that, put a code for 15% off the next 24 hours. And then if you have any feedback for us, we're always looking to improve. Put that in the chat as well. And then we do have, I can't remember if I mentioned it, but we do have 25% off the Let's Get Them Pressing course that does not expire. We'll make sure to put that in the chat for you as well. Great. Thank you so much for adding all those links, Calvin. All right, and Nadine asked, which camera do you recommend? We've got a really great spreadsheet resource. Let me see if I can link to that. I personally use several different ones. We've got some PetCube ones that that connect to the Bluetooth and Wi-Fi enabled buttons, the connect buttons. So every time a button is pressed, it automatically turns on the camera, which is really, really great. I've got just some cheap Wise cams. The sound quality is atrocious, but the motion activation is great. And the picture is great. And then I have Arlo that I use basically for the sound because the quality isn't as good close up. It's great for the wide angle and really great for the audio. But yeah, I'm between the research and having so many different learners and just being a complete nerd about this, I like to have many different angles. And then I can assess where buttons should go based on where they're using, where they're avoiding, and stuff. Chris, sounds like you might have a faulty button. Yeah, if anybody has any difficulties, especially after you've replaced a battery and the button's not working, we've got great customer service. They should not stop working like that on you. Go ahead and reach out to info@FluentPet and we'll start the replacement process for you. Thank you, Calvin. Let me see if I can find the camera spreadsheet. And let me know if there's any additional questions that you guys have that we can help out with. I know we're getting close to the hour. Totally understand if anybody needs to go. I really appreciate all of your time and focus and just interest in something new. Yeah, thrilled that you all are diving in. I wouldn't trade this for anything. All of my learners will at least have the opportunity to use buttons. from here on out. Yeah, and there's so many things that I wish that I had known, with learners who have now since passed. But yeah, so I'm thrilled that you all are diving in. Remember, this is not your only opportunity to get help. That's why we've got all these great resources. And I would normally say something like good luck, but you don't need luck. You know your learner and your household best. Have fun with it. You can always make adjustments. Change is inevitable, right? We just don't want to overwhelm them with it. So dive in, have fun, and let us know how we can help. Any difficulties? I still have not found that camera spreadsheet link. Oh, Calvin found it. Thank you, Calvin. I need to save. Actually, yeah, I'm going to bookmark this. All right, y'all. I don't think I see any more typing. I'll hang out another moment in case anybody does have some pressing questions. But I just wanted to thank you all so much again for being here. All of your great questions. Calvin, thank you as always for all of your assistance. No, Calvin, thank you for finding that link. I'm going to bookmark it so that we never have to go digging. Yeah, thank you guys. I hope everybody has a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. Yeah. And again, have fun with this. It's a blast. Bye, y'all.